Thank you. Greetings and a very warm welcome to Gyaan Daan DC's of knowledge growing through wisdom, shared wisdom, a 5-day virtual online session, or I'll say series celebrating the joy of giving through knowledge. Daan Utsav, India's festival of giving, we might be seeing a lot of around it. It's a time when people and organizations across the country come together to collaborate, to talk, to contribute, and also to share their different ways of giving. This year, we extend the spirit of giving when giving knowledge, because wisdom shared is wisdom multiplied. Gyaan Daan is DC's call to the sector to see the knowledge as the most powerful gift, one that sustains across generations, builds resilience in uncertain times, and strengthens our collective capacity to grow. This joy of giving is beyond material charity, sharing what we know, what we have learned that can also inspire others. Enduring societies are built not only on strong institutions, but also on the love of lifelong learning, wisdom, collaboration, because where knowledge flows, lives grow. From October 6 to 10, DC will host 5 sessions on, means these are all online sessions, 5 opportunities, but each session is designed to ask one particular question: what does it take for organizations to grow, adapt, and endure? And today I welcome to you all with the first panel of the first series of the 5 days virtual session of giving, sharing through sharing wisdom. Gyan बांटने से ज्ञान बढ़ता है. That is all what we have learned through our lives. And I'm Anamika, founder and CEO of Development Consortium. This is a small to medium-sized NGO, and this particular topic personally resonates with me. So, in a sector like ours, where we are chasing 12-month cycle of grants, adapting to evolving CSR norms, responding to shifting donor priorities, complex regulatory environment, long-term sustainability is both a challenge and a mandate. But today we are fortunate to have with us a stellar panel of change makers and experts. Let's take some Gyaan Daan from them. I welcome today Bhagyashree Lodha, Dr. Anand Lakshman, Nafeeza Ashraf, Poornima Garg, and Nikita Gupta. Let me introduce them to you one by one. I am sure the panel has introduced themselves. Bhagyashree is a fundraising powerhouse, as I said earlier, who has mobilized significant resources for top NGOs. She has also helped organizations, corporates craft impactful CSR strategies. Dr. Anand Lakshman is a physician, brings over 2.5 decades of public health experience, co-founding India's top school health service provider, Address Health, shaping policy with WHO, World Bank, and the likes. Nafeeza, founder of Ashoi Consultancy, is a seasoned non-profit strategist with more than 2 decades of experience in resource mobilization, helping NGOs build resilient donor systems, long-term sustainable funding strategies, and strengthening communication. Poornima, she is the country director of Room to Read India, scaling education programs that has already impacted millions with deep cross-sector experience in driving systemic change and gender equality, sorry, not equity. And Nikita Gupta, the last but not the least. Nikita heads the Center of Excellence for Fundraising at ILSS and has led Google.org's CSR strategy in India, advancing philanthropy across sustainability, gender, and digital equity. Thank you very much for giving your time, valuable time, and joining us today. Our aim to discuss today is what has worked on the ground and what hasn't, and what is it that needs to shift given the future of fundraising is becoming complex day by day, and also the CSR funding landscape, HNI, or even retail giving is changing every day. So what is it that we need to reimagine to have a sustainable funding beyond financial metrics also. So thank you everyone in the audience also who have joined us today and for this first session. And I'm sure this will be a very exciting one. And I will also quickly introduce Aarti Shukla, who is also my colleague and a co-moderator for today. She is Director, Strategy and Communication at DC and will be supporting. Over to you, Aarti.
Hello and a warm welcome, everyone. It's such a pleasure to have you finally all on board after having so many email conversations. So welcome aboard. I just want to quickly also take this moment to just describe how are we going to run the session today. So our conversation will be done in 4 sections. We will begin each section with an audience poll on the topic. And after the audience has polled on the topic, Anamika will invite the panelists to then reflect on those topics, and we will build our discussions on the result that we get from the polls, but also the experience that you all have, because the aim is to learn from each one of us. The poll will be shared. This is for our audience. The poll will be, while you will see the question on the PPT, the poll will be shared via a link on the Mentimeter, which is where you have to respond, and we will show the results on the screen, after which our panelists will take what you have to say and their own insights to craft this discussion. But before we do any of that, we would love to first take a photograph of everybody who's joined us today and then dive into the discussion. So may I please ask everybody to just switch on their cameras, and I will also stop share my screen, and so that we can take a picture of all of us. I can see 63 of us here right now, so that's a pleasure. I hope more people will join. So may I ask all my co-moderator colleagues to take a nice picture of all of us so that we can dive into the discussion. So my co-moderators, please give a thumbs up once you have clicked a nice picture, and I can let everybody off the camera then. But if you keep the camera on, that'll be nicer. So all right, on 1, 2, 3. One more attempt. 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much. I hope my co-moderators have got their photos. If not, too bad, because now we are heading long into our discussion. Anamika, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. And our first topic, here we go, is the funding landscape. And जैसे KBC चलता ना, your question on the Mentimeter screen now. Like what, 60 seconds to respond? Let's go by that way. Aarti, can you have the Mentimeter?
Right. So I am having, so this is, so can everybody see my screen? Can you see the Mentimeter loading? Right. So this is for our audience, and this is the first question of the day, and I'm going to also copy the link of the Mentimeter. We want you to think and quickly tell us, what are the emerging trends in the funding landscape that excite you or that worry you? So if you can share one each, that'll be great. The link is on your chat. And if you are sharing the excitement one, then just write E or excitement in front of it. And if it's something that worries you or concerns you, then just put W or C in front of it so that we know that whether you're worried or whether you're excited. So like Anamika said, your time starts now, and I think our panelists will be interested to see what comes up. So in the audience, we'd like you to tell us, what is it about the current funding landscape or the emerging trends in the landscape that excite you or concern you? We can see the answers have started coming in, so I know my link is working.
शुरू होता है अब KBC.
Right. So some of the options have started coming in. There's increasing oversight from the government, which is concerning. There's use of technology, blockchain for outreach, which is exciting. We are losing a bit human touch, so we can see contrasting perspective where the use of technology is exciting but concerning at the same time. There's more trained professionals in the sector, definitely exciting, and we have some of them on the panel today. There's a little long-term funding is a pain that everybody is very familiar with. I'm just scrolling down so that our panelists can see some of the other observations coming in. There's an opportunity of blended finance, which means that we can look at many models now. And the stance of the Trump government is definitely worrying. Then we have exciting is cross-sector collaboration. Worry is the short-term association. So lots of things to get our panelists started, Anamika, and I'm sure they have insights on all of them. So
thank you, everyone. Thank you, everybody who is in the audience who has responded to the question. And my question, I'd like to bring in Bhagyashree and Nafeeza here. And my question is, what, according to you, is broken or the gap, and what is hopeful in the current funding landscape? You've seen what the audience has responded, but what, in your opinion, do you see that?
Okay, I'll take it first if it's okay. Bhagyashree, I can't spot her right now. So there's a lot of information that I just am randomly looking at on the Mentimeter, and most of it I agree with. And I can also, this is also indicative of the trends and the kind of sector that we're going through and the kind of time we're going through in the sector. Let me put it like that. In terms of what is exciting for me as a fundraiser, what's always going to be exciting is the fact that there is continuous growth. There is continuous growth of possibility, and it's also growth in terms of we have to be more innovative. So that's exciting. What was working 3 years ago, 2 years ago may not necessarily work today, given the fact that I did see a couple of people talk about the global trends that are happening, the kind of government policies that are coming into play. So while that could be concerning, I also look at it as an opportunity for excitement and an opportunity where we need to constantly innovate ourselves. And I think that is paramount as a fundraiser. The trends these days that we're looking at in terms of fundraising, and if I was just to look at retail fundraising, for example, we're constantly looking at retail fundraising from a very myopic view, and we have been rather. We need to kind of expand that. So it's no longer just about telecalling, it's no longer about mailers, it's no longer about shooting out emails to people. It's also about how do we leverage technology. So it's how do you leverage not just your online sort of platforms, but now it's about leveraging AI into it. So AI is going to play a very, very critical role in fundraising going forward. And that's my personal belief. And I'm sure my panelists will also agree. It's not just about AI helping you to draft letters or to draft proposals, but going forward, the way there is innovation happening in AI, it's going to interlink, and there's going to be a marriage of that with fundraising. So that's exciting to look at. Impact in terms of storytelling. I think the buzzword for us as fundraisers these days in the couple of organizations I'm working with is it's all about storytelling. It's all about how we are putting across that story that's going to create impact, be it then for a corporate, be it for a UHNI that I'm working with or an HNI that I'm working with. So broadly, if I was to just touch upon areas that are exciting, that would be it. Concerning, of course, global policies, government policies are concerning. What's concerning is also the way we are looking at the sector in itself as a whole, and most of us understand where it's headed. For an example, turning a not-for-profit to a profit organization itself is it's just a sort of indicative of where we are headed, right? So I won't touch upon the concern so much right now, but I rather talk about what's exciting me these days, right? And I think philanthropists, HNIs, retail fundraising, hang in there. That is the way to go forward, right? So that's my take on it. I'm sure Bhagyashree will definitely add to this.
Thank you, Nafeeza. Bhagyashree?
Yeah. So I think I'll add to what Nafeeza has mentioned. I don't want to repeat it, so that people or whoever has joined us get a little more perspective towards. So as per my experience, I'll talk about the exciting thing that is happening is right now people have moved towards working in just in silos to working towards getting to more collaboration. Like even now I see that two NGOs they want to collaborate. It's not just a funder or a receiver who are looking at collaboration or partnership or coming together to solve a problem, but it's also among the organizations they want to collaborate. Like, for example, if someone has a team but doesn't have a funder, they would want to collaborate based on the resources that they have, right? So that is very exciting to know, as you know, how they are. So social work is always known for utilizing the optimal resources at the best, right? And it has been growing since then. I see a lot of young minds getting into social sector. They're getting formally trained and are very open to learn in terms of what is happening, and they are willingly joining social sector now. So that is very exciting, and we're getting fresh perspectives in terms of designing strategies. How do we raise funds? How to be creative in terms of our communications. So that is exciting. I also see that there is a lot of awareness that is happening, where people see that we need fundraising professionals in house. Earlier, it was only the founder who was responsible to raise funds for the organization. But now there is a need where people are realizing, the founders are realizing that we need professionals to help us do fundraising. It's not just one can do fundraising by themselves. So those are the things I think which are, and I'm really always excited to know about the stories of why and how they've started the organization. The gaps I would see is communication is something that I still feel is a gap, where there is no awareness in terms of, there are so many grassroots organizations working in tribalist part of the country, but we don't know, right?
Right.
And there is no way, there's a we are still trying to build up. There are platforms like these where we get a chance to talk about the work what we're doing in the sector. But then I feel that we need more platforms where these grassroots organizations could talk about the work that they're doing, and there needs to be an interest from the other end to appreciate them and to listen is something that, because there are solutions to every problem that we have as a country that we need to solve, and these are all lying with the grassroots organizations. So right now what I have been seeing, because I've been working with a lot of grassroots organization, I do mentor them. So that's where I think is a gap, where we need to talk more about, and also be a little perceptive in terms of accepting those solutions coming from those leaders. It's not that I just focus and limelight goes to all the big organizations who have the capacity of scaling their projects and who have the bandwidth to take up bigger projects. But I think the gap is that we accept more of these. So I've given the solution as well, but yeah, these are the couple of things that I see as gaps.
Right. Right. Thank you, Bhagyashree. That makes a lot of sense. And I see Nafeeza has raised
Yeah,
her hand.
just to add to what you're saying, and it just struck me, one of the gaps that we're seeing recently in the fundraising, or at least the groups that I'm fundraising and working with, is that we're constantly focusing on funding for projects, right? That is the way we've been sort of driven of how fundraising starts, and that's how we've been doing it for the last 20 years. But getting donors interested in core costs, getting donors interested in the larger organizational expenses, if I have to just put it simply, and operational overheads is also an extremely big gap, where we're finding very few donors who will take to that, right? So that is a big gap, because as organizations expand their work, they're also growing. So as an organization, you're not just expanding your projects, because donors tend to, and even organizations actually tend to just look at that as a measure of growth. But you're also growing in terms of the number of people you're hiring, the number of people you're bringing in. If you need to invest back into fundraising, you also need to have that kind of money coming in. And that's where there's a gap happening, which is of concern, definitely. We need to address that. There are very few donors at different levels who will be able to understand the need. But I think for me, what's concerning is that organizations themselves have not understood that this is a big gap and a big problem going ahead. So I
Right.
just wanted to add to that. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Very valid points. And I completely agree with both of you, Bhagyashree and Nafeeza. this is a challenge. There are a lot of gaps. We do work in silos. There is what worked 2, 3 years back doesn't work now. There are a lot of challenges around that. But there are some good opportunities out there, but just that we don't know how to get it. And especially the grassroots organizations, they really don't know how to get that, how to get right people, and even getting the right fundraising consultants and professions also. And second is the resources also. How do you bring those people on board? You have to pay for that, right? So that's really interesting. And I'll just ask one more follow-up question building on this, that CSR, retail, HNI are two different components, right? CSR has its own complexities, and HNI, philanthropy, UHNI, retail giving is totally different. And this is the future as we see right now. So can you both share one small example quickly for the audience, what has worked, what has not, or maybe something for them to learn based on what you have actually done on the field, because this is the lessons from the field that we are talking about.
Right. If I was to just look at, let's just take the HNI aspect of it. Retail fundraising is another different gamut. So you really don't want to club in retail, and HNI actually should not be clubbed in together. So that's the first
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
But one of the things that has worked for me, and I have shared this with you when we have had our conversations earlier, Namika, is that there is a constant requirement, and from an organizational perspective, or for those NGOs that we're working for, is to constantly build and nurture relationships, right? Very often we think that if you've got an introduction done, we've met the person a couple of times, we've invited them, now it's time to pitch them and ask them for the money or the fund. And I more and more lately have realized that it is so dependent on a trust factor. It's just trust about the person that you're representing, but the organization you're representing. You've got to nurture that relationship. You've got to expand that relationship into sort of a network, because you're not just dealing with one person. In the case of HNI, it could be their family members. You've got to get people involved and invested before you actually make the ask, right? At least that's what I have also altered in my approach in the last 20 years of working with HNIs, right? So that's just a quick tip. It's definitely about relationship building. It's about thinking through how you want to do it, build that trust factor with them, involve their family members or people close to them, make it as transparent from our end as an organization before the actual ask happens. And this is not necessary for the UHNIs I'm talking about. Even someone who's willing to give you a lakh of rupees,
yeah,
you can consider them as an HNI. I'm not just talking about, the 25 lakh, 30 lakh, 50 lakh bracket. I'm talking about someone who's also going to give you 50,000 to a lakh also. I would treat them the same way.
absolutely. Thank you,
That's just
Nafeeza.
a tip. Yeah.
Before I go to Bhagyashree, sorry, I like the audience also to share their questions and direct your questions to whosoever you want to ask, and we'll take it towards. And apologies, I didn't mention that earlier. So now, over to you, Bhagyashree, now on the
Uh,
CS.
Yeah, so let's think of it as investment. Like when you are doing an investment, you just don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? You would rather want to diversify because you want to be safe, and you want to diversify your returns because you, at the end of the day, you want to balance it out, right? So when it comes to fundraising, I always tell to all my NGO partners and as part of my consultation calls also, that you just can't rely on any of these one funding source to your organization. And any of these funding sources, you have to be very strategic in terms of what is working for you and at what level. Like for example, if you're just beginning, you're the initial years of your organization, like from 0 to say 5 years, 7 years, you will see that for you, you will get funding from HNIs because you have good circle network and all of that. For them, that time it will work for you. And then when you gradually want to scale, you will add in more eggs to your basket, right? And so that is how it is working. Now at the end of the day, when you want to scale, you'll have to see, do you have the risk appetite, which means do you have enough funds to hire a team to take care of those sector, and do you have a dedicated person who can look at HNI and maintain relationships, as Nafeeza have mentioned, right? Then if you have kind of energy in terms of diversifying to other portfolios as well. Like there's institutional funding, there's retail fundraising, as you said, HNI is there. There are a lot of international grants and national grants that are available. You have, you need one person to just keep on applying for RFPs because that is also a source of funding, right? So you need to also see what is the appetite of you as a leader of the organization or as a fundraising head, and also in terms of resources, whether you would want to give that time, energy, and money to that, and see it for like a year and so, and see the kind of efforts. Sit and design what is working out for you, and then see the kind of returns that you're getting. If you're not getting the expected result out of it, then you just move aside and keep that aside, and move to the ones that is working for you. And that's how you kind of increase, or kind of multiply on the revenue or the funding that you're getting. So that is my idea overall when you want to see what is working well, because every set of fundraising funnel needs specific attention and skills,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can't
right?
agree more. Can't agree.
Yeah. So that is, I think, has worked for my NGO partners so far, and this is what been my experience working with so many NGOs. I still see there are so many big organizations who have just created a different vertical to take care of retail fundraising, and that's only 20% of the funding that they're getting. So that's like 500. We are talking about organization who are doing 400, 500 crores of turnover in a year, right? So that's how you kind of see balance. Like 20% is for HNI because they can afford the manpower for it. 20% for institutional funding. 60% is only CSR because retail fundraising or HNI is not working out for them, right? Because the project size also is important. Like what is the project of your organization? What kind of funds are you looking at? If you're saying that you have HNI who is giving 1 lakh rupees a year, but the project that you're saying is very cost heavy, right? So then you can't just rely on 12 HNIs who are just giving out 12 lakhs a year, right? So you have to sit and for that, I would suggest to maybe, hire a consultant who can help you do that work for you, if because we don't have expertise in all of the domains. So it's better to always consult an expert for that. Maybe, you can see a pro bono thing, or, hire a consultant for a couple of months and see what is working for you, and then move ahead from there.
Thank you, Bhagyashree and Nafeesa. These are really very helpful, and I believe that every organization is different, and every organization needs something different, different bucket, different project, or maybe different ways of funding. Something might work for one, may not work for the other. So these are
Absolutely.
things to learn and
There is
really.
no copy paste strategy that one could see. For example, if you see that Pratham is in education and you just copy what they're doing in their fundraising strategy, it might not work for you,
Absolutely.
because how they have started, you might not know, right? So
Absolutely, absolutely, completely agree. Thank you very much, and I'm sure I don't see any questions on the chat, but audience, please feel free to put your questions on the chat, and towards the end, we'll take all those to the panelists, and please direct your questions. I'll keep on reminding this again and again. Okay, so Nikita, are you back? And shall we go now next to you? Okay, Aarti, question number 2.
Right. So just like every time we want to ask something to the panelists, we ask the audience before so that we get a sense check. So now we are going to ask for something that really frustrates our audience. So what is, according to our audience, is the one thing that needs to end when it comes to fundraising today? Like, what if you could just remove that thing from the fundraising scenario? So the link is on your chat. We'd like to start seeing results, and then Nikita will have fodder to get started. So
Your time
yeah, that's
now. KBC.
we are beginning to see results now, and the frustrations are going to come out.
Yes. Audience, please अपने मन की बात जरूर बोलें. I'm trying to make it more simple. Please try and respond and ask questions from the panelists also. They love to respond your questions. I'm sure they will.
The pain's beginning to emerge on screen.
Yes. Number
So the number game, removing all jargon, people's perception. The concept of your network is the net worth. Expectation of kickbacks. Thank you, everyone. Keep them coming. There's definite lack of stability. Excessive reporting requirements. Restricted funding. Remove the fundraising team and make this a mandate for CXO and program teams.
Wow.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Short-term funding, restricted funding is a repeated concern, right? So we'll keep the slide on as people continue to write, but Anamika, Nikita, Anamika, over to you.
Yeah. Thanks. I love the point on restricted funding. Also, if that is removed, everything what Nafeeza said earlier also gets in this bucket. Okay, so I like to bring in Nikita now, and given that your experience and given you are working with 300 kind of organization, more than 300 organization, do you see the future of funding moving towards unrestricted or flexible funding based on, and also please try to see what audience has responded also on this question. We'd like to hear from you, what your thoughts are.
Thanks, Anamika, and very nice to be here. Um, I feel like my question has drawn a lot of, hidden frustrations from our audience. But going to your question of whether I see the trend moving towards unrestricted or flexible funding, right? I'm going to say a super cautious yes to that, in the sense that there is some dialogue, right? There is some shift that we're starting to see in pockets in the sector. Why I'm cautious is that it is not nearly universal enough for it to really matter to organizations yet, right? And for us as the wider sector to see the positive effects of what's happening. So I don't need to go into the fact that, frankly, most nonprofits today don't really get unrestricted funding. I think for a large majority, there's a very small percentage, if at all, that's going to be unrestricted funding as of today. And, that has led nonprofits to go into what we typically call the nonprofit starvation cycle, right? That you're only getting funding tied to projects. That means that you don't have funds for org development or to meet certain other needs that could actually amplify your work much, much beyond where it stands today. And the frustration has been a lot with, some of the conventional institutional funding that happens, right? Wherein there are very set in stone metrics for what the project is going to do and achieve. I think, largely speaking, that trend continues. And I see some responses which, talk about short-term funding, which is either for a few months, or with CSR, typically people will say you're not going to get funding for more than 3 years and so on, right? These are the truths that the sector faces. What I think is encouraging in terms of hopefully influencing some degree of change in the longer run is, firstly, I think there are some funder categories, right, which are trying to move towards more strategic, trust-based philanthropy, right? And you would notice this, like among domestic foundations, let's say a Rohini Nilekani philanthropy, or, when the Grow Fund was set up by Edelgive in partnership with a few other funders, the whole intent was to start, addressing the need for funds towards capacity building or other nonprofits, other needs that nonprofits have been expressing for a while now. And it is not simply that these funders have been making the funds available, but it's also the dialogue that they help drive, right? And hence influencing a larger community of funders towards considering those same things. Gritspan has been talking about pay what it takes, along with a consortium of funders and other organizations, again, to drill down the fact in the sector that it's not just program costs that are going to drive impact. And if nonprofits don't get support towards team building or capacity training that they require to, enhance their own impact, then in the long run, we all lose together, right? So some of the new gen thinking, some of this institutionalized thinking and consortiums that are coming up, I think gives us some hope. What we must remember is not all funders are created equal, right? So some category of funders afford us more opportunity in this regard than others. So just as an example, we know that, today the regulatory environment is such that, any FCRA funding or any CSR funding has certain boundary conditions, right? And we can sort of talk about it till the cows come home. But fact is that, when those institutions themselves are constrained by certain, compliance pressures, we might have very limited success in driving that dialogue. Versus, organizations that have been able to build a healthy retail pipeline and individual giving. I loved how Nafeeza pointed us to the difference between HNI and retail, right? Because both those sets of donors definitely have very different considerations. Having said that, both are individuals, right? People who give an individual capacity, and hence the leeway that they have, right, to redefine the norms around what and how they'll give is definitely higher. So that's a long-winded way of saying that, there is scope, there is some shift in thinking around this, but I think it's going to be a while before we see it happening systematically and across donor types.
Absolutely, completely agree. And similar to like every organization who needs funding is not the same. The donor who is giving is also not the same. So bucketing the donors and segmenting, somebody has asked that question also, segmenting donor in different, what is the idea or what is their objective also that they are trying to fund. So I believe I like to build on this particular aspect is Indian donors, the diaspora and the collectives that you were talking about, that play a very important role in reshaping, I'll say not shaping, the reshaping of the ecosystem. And given how every organization thinks, people work in silos. मैं वो काम कर रही हूँ, same organization is working, it means 5-10 organizations are working in the similar geography, but they are not collaborating. So where do you see this collaboration? This is a very important topic, and we are picking that up tomorrow in detail, perhaps a little bit for our audience, if they can understand what does it mean when you talk about collective or the collaboration, because donors, diaspora doesn't understand what collaboration means. मैंने एक को पैसे दिए, मुझे उसी से काम चाहिए. They don't understand 5 people working on the same program. So what do you think? You have a very vast experience of different organizations.
So Anamika, and maybe others can chime in, right? I don't have a very good answer for this, even from the nonprofit side of things, right? Like I spoke a little bit about some intermediaries and funding agencies coming together to drive more discourse around pay what it takes, ending the starvation cycle, and so on. And historically, of course, on that side, certain groups of people or certain entities have been very influential, right, in helping us challenge certain norms. I think on the nonprofit side, why I'm kind of hesitant to say a lot is because I also see limited, sort of examples of collectivizing in that manner, right? Like, for instance, one of our alumni, Ashish Srivastav, he's been, leading a collaborative effort for organizations in the East called the Reach Collective, right? And the whole intent, I mean, his own organization works on education for children at risk, especially in conflict areas, and has been able to bring organizations in the region, right, with aligned work under that umbrella. But I do kind of agree with you that funding a collective, right, especially for institutional funders, it's kind of how should I say? It's still relatively rare, right? And again, I would draw the distinction between a CSR versus some of the more evolved philanthropies, right, which are sometimes able to put some risk capital behind it. I think, okay, two things that I see as potential challenges, right? One is the visibilities of these collective efforts itself. I do think that there is a limited understanding of, one, the existence of some of these collaboratives, two, how they work and how then the funding flows, right? If and once given. But two, aligning that many stakeholders to say, this is the vision, these are the KPIs, this is what we'll deliver, right? Because eventually it's a lot of trust building required on both ends, right? I do see that as being a bit of a challenge oftentimes. But with that said, and I don't have the holy grail to it, but I know that, cross-leveraging resources and pooling funds in a way that, our impact goes, how we say the whole is more than the sum of its parts, right? So while that adage is true, I think we're still, at least in my personal understanding, we're still hoping for stronger exemplars to become more visible for the sector to learn from, in a sense.
Thank you so much. And I'm sorry I'm running over time in each session because everybody is so experienced, and I'm very happy to hear, and so is the audience also, to hear your insights. And I'm sure these are very important aspects of different things that people can try in. And also, as we hear from other panelists also, especially with regards to how systems work and how for-profit sections work. So that's really helpful. Thank you, Nikita. Let's go on topic 3, where we are talking about funding sustainability. And the question on the Mentimeter will flow for the audience now. Aarti?
Coming right.
आज हमारे पास वैसे KBC टाइप का म्यूजिक होता है, ढंग ढंग. I'll request the audience, please keep the questions coming in.
So now I think we are all going further in sharing our concerns and to basically get a sense check and a pulse check of how we feel about sustainability of funding. And I want to find out who these yeses are. And bring, yeah, and hire them. But good, please keep sharing. The next section will build upon the sustainability of funding. So it would be good to see how our audience feels about this. So the no tower is coming up big and bright. And for some reason, Mentimeter has also chosen a red pinkish color for it. But I think that kind of sets the mood for the next question, Anand.
Yes, absolutely. So maybe I'll thank you for giving the responses. Love to know. I think audience is also shy to share about where they are on the funding situation, so perhaps that's okay. I'll bring in Poornima now. Poornima, I can't see on the screen. Maybe yes, now I can. So Poornima, what do you see? Means what you are seeing, the response on the screen. What's your thought? And given that you have a lot of experience from the ground, you've been in Room to Read India, and Room to Read is a bigger organization, and India is the baby of bigger organizations. How have you seen? What's your take on this?
Sure. So thank you, Anamika, and it was a very interesting topic that I was pulled in for. And I'll talk more from a practitioner's point of view. Most people have said that their current funding is not sustainable. Either they were unsure or they said no. So, I would say that this really reflects a sobering reality across the sector. So while I'm still happy to see 2 yes on the board, but then if we really look at some of the reports that have come up, say the Bidspan 2024 India report, that echoes this. There are very, very few nonprofits that have multi-year or predictable funding commitments. And I think this is where all of us really struggle when we talk about sustainability. And really, from my experience, even large and well-established organization, even like ours, are still operating cycle to cycle. And this is actually a growing funder interest that we see in systemic change, but the flow of the flexible and long-term capital hasn't really caught up as of today when I talk about. And and genuinely, I don't know if I should use the word prediction or gut or experience, but it says that over the next 3 to 5 years, funders will begin valuing institutional resilience as much as program outcomes, because not only if nonprofits can demonstrate credible governance, data driven learning, and efficiency. So I would just say I agree with the sentiment of uncertainty, but I also see it as a transition phase and not really as a dead end. We still saw two people who really feel that they have a sustainable pipeline. So I would just think there is a hope at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely, can't agree more, Poornima. And having said that, you have already touched upon my next question, that there is a lot coming from the ground. Whether you see the outcomes, means people want to always see the outcomes, right? ग्राउंड पे कितने लोगों को आपने रीच किया, हाउ मेनी बेनिफिशियरीज, कितने स्कूल्स में गए, they really don't want to value the impact they have created. What is it that a child could learn, a first generation girl could do something different for her entire community or something like that. So I think that is where the biggest challenge, and that is very hard truth, right? So given all these scenarios, what do you think is, from the field experience, what do you see is, can something change around that? How can you change the mindset, or how can you convince the funder, given all these impact that you would want to share with them?
Sure. And Anamika, thank you for saying that. And some of the co-panelists did touch upon some of this. This is one of our hard truths, that impact often outpaces the investment in the system that enables it. So, everyone wants to fund the visible outcomes. Um, Children reach, school transform, lives change. But there are very, very few who are ready to fund the organizational architecture that make these outcomes sustainable. And I would also talk about that from our experience at Room to Read. We have seen that without strong monitoring system, data infrastructure, staff development, even the best design interventions can lose its quality at scale. And honestly, while I say quality at scale, because at Room to Read, we try and focus now on scale. And, uh, we've changed our strategy, and we are now wanting to kind of say that we are into an accelerate mode, wherein we can reach more children more quickly. And when you work on India as a landscape, of course, the scale is something that you can't miss. So the real shift is needed in form of project sustainability to institutional sustainability. And someone actually said this, that funders are only interested in funding a project. Uh, till the time you're just funding the project, you're not really funding the institution who's running that. We're bound to fail. So donors and implementers, I would say, must own the responsibility of investing into the backbone of the delivery and not just the front end story. And that's where the biggest mistake happens, wherein we are just funding what is visible, what is the front end story.
Absolutely, completely resonate with you, Poornima, because a lot of times we think, "Acha, यहाँ से पैसे मिल रहे हैं, let's put a small project and let's get it." We usually, tend to be more funder focused rather than the problem focus that we are trying to solve, or rather than the model that we have. So I
Absolutely.
that there is a funder-led model and there is a community-led model or the problem-led model, right?
Yeah.
These two don't marry each other. Have you seen any challenge there in Room to Read and from other experiences you have? And I believe a lot of audience who are here will also think about how do you balance that with funder and program?
See, I think funder and program, or when I say program, I would generally say program-led models when we talk about. And I think we are at that threshold of that shift, honestly, because as I'm saying that, I still see a hope. I've been in this role. I also support the fundraising team. So we, as a sector, conceptually we are ready, but operationally we are still learning. And when you talk about program-led models, they demand a deep rewiring of how we think about power and accountability and knowledge. It means trusting really the communities, our school partners, children, not just as beneficiaries, but as co-architects of change. And when that starts to happen, to get there, actually the non-profits will need to decentralize decision making. We need to invest in local leadership, design accountability frameworks, to really reflect the kind of community priorities that we have and not just the donor matrix. Because that's where the real struggle is, because donor would have a RACI matrix to tell you that I'm going to be funding you 1 CR, and as per my CSR norm, I will really do an impact assessment on you. So funders in turn will have to be comfortable funding trust, because that's what is a real localization that is really required in our sector, I would say.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Poornima. And I guess the trust word is coming out very prominently from all the discussions that we have had so far. Trust, relationship building, and how you make them understand, that's coming out very strong. And having said that, I'll ask audience now a question that has anybody in the audience tried any other sustainability model that you would like to share with us? Please put that on the chat and we will love to hear from you towards the end in the audience Q&A section. And with this, we move to the fourth topic of today, and I'll request Aarti to put the Mentimeter on.
So the next question basically talks about, do alternative funding models help in creating social impact? And some of us simply may not know enough about them. So we would like to get again a pulse check on alternative funding models and how do we feel about them. It's encouraging to see yes and don't have enough knowledge sort of thing going side by side. So there is enough, seems to be experience in the sector and not at the same time.
Wow, it's a contrast. Actually, it's balance, isn't it? Either you know or you don't know.
Excellent. I think that gives us enough fodder to think about this interesting challenge.
Right. And we have tried RG with the UNHCR. I think Alok has responded on some interesting point. I'll go to Anand now, and Dr. Anand, if you can come in and tell us about, means you have set up for, you had a non-profit and then you went to profit, and then you are trying to keep the lights on always, and yet you are trying to create the social impact. We love to hear, why did you think so? What has worked and what has not worked, and has that been, means, of course, this would have been a journey, and I would like you to share your experiences so far so that other people could also understand, okay, with profit entity also I can create a social impact. And how do you do it?
Yeah, thanks, Anamika. First of all, we always hear of this thing about panels becoming manels, but I am on a flannel. I have fine ladies on the panel and one faltu ladka on the panel. So I'm thanking you for that. And I just want to, talk about, I worked in non-profits. I started off working with an NGO in 1999 after medical school. And from there, I thought that non-profits are the space to work. And I then worked in that space for several years. And then I think I can identify myself as basically a non-profit, at heart. But I want to ask some questions to ourselves, identifying with this group. I want to ask this question, that why we are always identifying ourselves as not for something. We are not for profit, we are non-governmental, we are non-something. Why are we always non-something? This is the problem. We are nonsensical when we are non for something, according to me. And my point is that I thought about it a lot, and I said that we are for value organization. Okay, there is only one type of organization in this world, and those are for value organizations. It is whom are you creating this value for? For profits create the value by theory for shareholders. Non-profits create value for other stakeholders. This is the difference. All organizations have to be for value. So I will look at first inward and say, is there some way in which we can rename this nomenclature of not being for something? Okay. So that is my first thing which set off, because what happened in 2010, you will know, Anamika, you were there at Micronutrient Initiative. I raised $13.5 million from Children's Investment Fund and Gates Foundation for International or Micronutrient Initiative. And that is the time I started feeling started feeling that this is not what I want to do, because I was thinking like, we are so grant based and we are so much driven by donor agenda on what we want to do. And I felt at that time in 2010 that the ultimate reality is market. And then I realized after 15 years that is also not the ultimate reality. But I tried a market-based solution. Why I tried market-based solution is I felt in public health impact can be created across many income segments. It is not that, of course, the poorest of poor need impact, but who is to say that rising childhood hypertension or mental well-being concerns in the middle class are not public health concerns? So this way, what resulted in thinking that we should create a for-profit and that market is the ultimate test. Of course, the flaws in that are many, and we can discuss that. So coming to what has worked for me. So as I said, as I made a declaration, 15 years I have been running a for-profit organization, only profitable last 3 years. This is the 4th year of profitability. We were non-profit, not making profits for the first 8-9 years, and then COVID 2 years we didn't make profits. We were almost close to making profits but couldn't make. But now we are very much focused on being profitable. So now what has worked? So focus on products from the beginning which are sustainable. This has worked for us, because when we design the product, we think whether this is sustainable or not. And only if it is sustainable, we should be able to scale it up. So that focus has helped us a lot by going into the costing and looking at the scale and saying, okay, this is an investment we'll make in the capex and the opex. And then ultimately, how is it that we can make it sustainable, make it deliver enough value to the customer, and at the same time give enough returns to the company. So this has been the thing. What has not worked is, actually we've tried a lot of impact focused work where price discovery hasn't worked in the first attempt, second attempt. We tried to do price discovery with low income schools. We said, okay, we'll try a subsidy model. So from the beginning, we knew the product will not work, but we keep trying to do price discovery, trying to see what is the thing we can do do as an add-on. Can we create impact and then figure out how to make it profitable? Though after several attempts, it has failed for us, and we were not able to find a clear model. And of course, CSR funding there makes a difference, because there we are not focusing on the paying customer. customer. The customer are basically the children in government schools who are not having to pay for this, what we are doing, but the CSR partner is able to pay. And within that space, you will be happy to hear, very little work we do with CSR as addresses. Less than 10% of our work is CSR funded. And of those, I'm very lucky that I have a multi-year, 3-year grant, 3-year not grant because I am not an NGO, 3-year committed agreement with the CSR foundation. And that is entirely done on me selling the concept to them with a logical framework and saying, this is the impact. And if you don't want this impact, I'm not going to do this year on year. This is what I want to create. This is the impact. We'll measure it. We will show you these outcomes. And this is what is possible. And I sold an inclusive price model. I didn't go into details of like a NGO, like we start going budget line item. I said it's an insurance model. I'll give you a per child pricing. This is the impact. Are you willing to pay this price for the impact? And it took me several interactions and 1 year of trying or 2 years of trying. And I was lucky to get one CSR foundation who is backing it. Of course, we do many other smaller work with CSR, but CSR is small part of our work. So that is the short summary of some of the points that I can bring to the table.
Thank you so much, Anand. I think this has been quite a bit of a journey for you, means from starting from what has worked again with the service model. I believe this is a very interesting mode of working, connecting with the CSR organization, you becoming the service provider and also showing the impact. So they do not need to, find an non-profit. You don't like the non-profit word at that or that kind of organization. So perhaps this is again an interesting model. Anybody who would like to connect with Anand to know more in detail might reach out to him. But yes, it's really interesting. Thank you so much, Anand, for sharing your journey on that. With that, we have the last question on Mentimeter for the audience, and this is my personal favorite question. Actually, and I believe all the panelists will also agree that this is a very good question. And most of you have already answered that question actually, but still we wanted to put it for the audience. Over to you, Aarti.
Right. So when we get funding, it is every penny for something on the ground. And often we find that some of the things that really help organizations sustain have no line item on the budget. So which of these do you feel are simply underfunded? And then that helps us build our last section.
That's quite a contrast. Everybody is like off capacity. Again, the overheads. I think every panelist talked about this particular fund.
I think all capacity building comes up at the because I think जब लोग ही नहीं होंगे तो बाकी काम कैसे होगा, चाहे वो research हो, चाहे वो pilot हो, चाहे anything else. So over to you now.
Thanks. And I think with this, it is also kind of question to all of us is, and I'll throw this question to all the panelists is, a lot of invisible work goes into the organization, from the organization to, bring on the programs on the ground, to high level impact on the ground, and give what you call as the KPIs, the impact, the indicators, and what all things. But always we feel this is all considered as invisible. The funders don't see it. It is not important for them. They don't feel, okay, if there is nobody on the finance or operations, things will not work. If there is no organization capacity to even monitor the outcomes, there will be nothing that they can see. So there is a lot of invisible work that goes into whatever we see on the ground. Again, I'd love to hear any quick thoughts from the panelists, given we are already running over the time. The discussions are so interesting, don't want to end it.
So, if I can come in here and make a suggestion, like, in something from being outside the sector, see this, I see something, with what is happening with CSR, right? So, I think that there is a need for, creating some kind, whether the Ministry of Corporate Affairs does it or whether there's an additional this thing on, because there's such a skew in CSR, there's such a small set of organizations which are generating huge profits and therefore have huge CSR, and then there is a long tail that is there. There is a necessity to create some kind of fellowships for non-profits to fund some of these positions. Some of these positions should be mandatorily funded. People could apply and get it from, this could be an initiative under Ministry of Corporate Affairs, or it could be that we tell all that once the CSRs who have got the maximum kind of money to say, you need to keep exportation away for this and have a transparent process, get the best industry minds to decide, get some kind of fellowships going for leaders, for finance professionals, because the best in business need to come and do this work. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult. We keep hiding these overheads and it doesn't make any sense for me. It really doesn't make any sense. So that's one suggestion I have for this.
Yeah, that's really helpful, Anand. And I believe that is a very big policy question, and I'm not sure how we can achieve that until and unless there is a collective or a consortium of organizations actually working on it and actually showing that in evidence also that this works and this does not work. Maybe anybody else in the panel, I'd love to hear you before we get into the Q&A section of the discussion today.
I would say leadership development is something that we need to focus and also diverse our funds. As Mr. Anand rightly said, that once we have leaders who are the experts and know how to, they get our voices at the right place. The ones who have the right connect, the one who have the voice, the one who have the expertise to talk about it and also elaborate in terms of what are the challenges an organization is facing, right? So we need to be really sure of who we have on as board of directors and who we have as on the C-suite level, because these will be the ones who will obviously take the decision uh, for the entire organization, and also who has the authority also to talk about, and decision making and taking our voices out there, who are there on the senior panels, who are going to sit in the review meetings or the board meetings. So I think we should start focusing our efforts in getting right leaderships to the organizations as well.
Thank you so much, Bhagyashree. While I can see the responses are like all capacity and research and evidence, which means uh, everything what we want to ask or we want help or is also based on evidence and research. So if we are not able to do evidence, if we are not able to create that kind of data for the people, then you don't also get the funding. Right. So perhaps, yeah, I completely agree. There are a lot of different aspects of these things that we can work on, and we can learn from other organizations, maybe who are doing more better. And that is why this is the first Gyaan Daan. Gyan baatne se badta hai. So let's continue on this. Aarti, I know you have been taking questions, so let's move to the section on audience Q&A, and if you can put them on screen.
Thank you, Anand. Thank you so much, Anamika, and thank you to all the panelists. It's been such a wonderful conversation, and it has really engaged our audience, and we have a lot of questions. So how I'm going to do is I'm going to ask one question from the list that we have curated from the chat, but I am also welcoming the audience to raise their hands. So if you want to ask a question directly, So please raise your hand, join the queue. I'm going to raise one question from the list, and then I'm going to invite the people who've raised their hands to ask another question. So here we go. I think the first question that I have here is from Alok Rawatji. He says, what do the panelists think about small, regular donations from individual individual donors for sustainability?
So if
Who
I'll
would like to
that
take the
one, I'll take that one. That's my favorite area of fundraising.
Please come in.
So I think one of the mantras, if I want to call it, and this is something I share with everyone, is that the only sustainable form of fundraising going forward, no matter what size of an organization you are, is going to be individuals. And I've been saying this since 2011. I was part of that school of thought that believed that individual and local fundraising was very key when organizations were still reaching out to international grants. So I believe small, mid-size, it doesn't matter. Individuals are the key for sustainability, right? So I believe if you're doing that, please continue doing that, because believe me, in times of duress, in times of other crises that most organizations will face sometime or the other, it's this pool of individuals that you have been reaching out to and you're nurturing, and you're going to keep them with you. That will help you tide over really tough times. And I have seen this with plenty of organizations that I've worked with. And I'm not talking about very large organizations. I'm talking about small organizations. I'm talking about large and medium-sized organizations, all of them. So that is definitely something, if you're doing, please continue doing it. Those who aren't doing it, please take that as a sign to start. I hope that helped, Alokji.
Thank you, Nafeeza, for not only answering the question, but with such passion, so that I think it will rub on everybody who was listening. So thank you, Nafeeza.
I'll add a
Nikita.
quick line to that, which is simply to say, so one is the sustainability, as Nafeeza was saying, right? Like in times of crisis, having a strong base of ambassadors, supporters who are, who truly just believe in your cause is very useful. But the other thing it does is that what institutional funders currently don't fund very frequently, right? All your org capacity, leadership development, etc. Oftentimes your individual donations, right? Like it's easier to carve that out from that budget or put it towards corpus, etc. So, I mean, you'll have your own strategy, but it checks multiple boxes for an organization if you're able to create that revenue stream.
True.
Thank you, Nikita, for adding that bit. That totally is, yeah, makes sense.
Thank you so much, Nafeeza and Nikita. And I think there's a question from Sumita Lahiri that kind of builds upon this. What can be done to develop long-term engagement with potential HNI donors?
So just repeat the question again. What can be done?
What can be done to develop long-term engagement with potential HNI donors?
What can be done is a phenomenal amount of things that one can do. But what I would say is, just as a very basic fundamental starting point, is identifying individuals who resonate with the cause and with the organization. So start there, because that is critical. It's not just about the appeal and the pitch part of it. Once you're able to find that sort of synthesis, you're able to find those contacts, like I shared right in the beginning. I tend to talk very basic. So the thing is, build that relationship, build that trust factor, because believe me, once you build that relationship, which takes a little time, and trust not just that the organization, but it's a two-way street. You need to also understand who your potential donor is going to be, and that will help you build that HNI portfolio if you want to build that. Of course, then there is a lot of strategy that also goes into it. So I'm not taking away from that. It's not as simplistic as I'm putting it, but for the paucity of time, start with actually finding the right fit to your organization. As much as you would do for a corporate or anyone else, it's not any individual that will want to come and fund you, right? So just start there. And I think then it's about strategy and development of that.
Is it okay if I add to
Yes,
what
please,
Nafeeza was
Nikita,
sharing?
please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there are a couple of levers, right? Like one is your comms engine. I think one of the things that we under leverage here is just sending updates, important information, something that would excite people, right? So once you've acquired the donor who's hopefully very, aligned with the work that you do and, is turning into a longer term ambassador, how do you make sure they stay updated and excited? That's the question you want to ask yourself, right? They know what you're doing and they continue to feel like, this is the right choice. I want to help this organization grow, right? So your basic comms is definitely one lever where via newsletters, even simple emails, authentic emails, right? Just saying, this is what happened. Some organizations even just send WhatsApp pictures, or quick things that are happening on the field. And it helps the donor feel that you have them on your mind, right? And you're sharing the positives from what's happening. But the second is, Nafeeza was talking about a more strategic engagement itself. So the thing with HNI funders is oftentimes they're funding you because something about your work really resonates with what they care about, right? And so how do you continue to help them care? One, treat them not simply as a funder, but oftentimes even as a thought partner, right? Bring them into brainstorming sessions, take them to the field to see what's happening, right? Make the impact visible, but also feel like they have some longer term stake in your journey, right? Treat them also as resources beyond their money. So, one, brainstorming, but I often go back to the funders for my center saying, hey, this is something I'm, trying to get done. Do you know this person? Like, I'm going to run a conference. I'm not even talking about money, but I want other funders to come into my conference. Can you connect me with these 3 people? I think they're going to be phenomenal speakers. Their investment in what you're trying to do continues to grow the more you engage them beyond the money that they're giving you. So that's my quick one.
Thanks, Nikita. Just to take forward from what Nikita was saying now, Nikita's talking from a very large organizational perspective from, let's just say, but I'll just give you an example of a really small organization that I work with. And what we do is we literally do a WhatsApp weekly update, which is one picture or a 30-second video clip with literally 6 bullet points. And I could share a sample later on just from the organization and just say, hey, weekly update. And we've realized that the kind of connection that we're getting and the sort of traction that we're getting on that is being really great. And the response, because we're also trying things like right in the beginning, I talked about how storytelling is really the key part of our communication, which is going to then resonate and create impact. Secondly, I'll give you an example of just what Nikita said. When we're not talking about money, we have a pool of, let's say, our donors. And I tend to reach out to them and I say, hey, I just want to come. I'm in Bombay. Can I come for half an hour and pick your brains? Like literally, that's my conversation. And it would be about something that's happening there. So ironically, I was having this conversation in the morning with Anamika, and I was saying I'm in Bombay for 3 days, and I'm meeting only my HNI group, but not a single one of them have I asked for money. Not a single one of them am I here to do an appeal or a pitch. We want to do this, anything. It's literally about just picking their brains, meeting them over a coffee, telling them an update, showcasing where the impact of that particular organizational work is gone. And that's all I'm doing right now. So a lot of times that is very key. Sometimes we tend to forget that these small little things that we do, like a Dasera, I'm down for the Dasera holidays, happy, festivities to you. I'm also here on Monday, Tuesday. Would you like to meet up? Right? And it's as simple as that. And more often than not, people will give you the time, right? They will give you that 15 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, depending on their schedule. But that really does create an impact. And of course, like we already said, there are different strategic ways of going about it. That's the asking of the finances about it, the money part of it. But first start using these strategies to sort of engage with people. Thanks, Nikita. I just wanted
Thank
to
you
add.
very much, Nafeeza, and I hope, Sumita, you have a long list of things to do. I'll move to a very different question now, and this is from Vidula Chopra. Vidula says, how should one move from working as an implementation manager to maybe becoming a freelance consultant for an NGO or an impact assessor for corporate? So this is personal ambition. So how could, and is it a good idea? So it does, if an implementation, and I'll take the question a little further, is if it's an implementation person coming on board for fundraising, is that something which is going to bring more value to the table?
I can respond to that.
Please, Lou.
I would love to hire you. Please contact me. That's point number one. Because I think the biggest struggle that we generally have when we write proposals, when we do technical conversation, because these days donors do want to get engaged into technical conversations. Even if it's a HNI, a philanthropist, a family foundation, they understand the business. They are just not giving away money because they are just wanting to do a legendary or a legacy fund, but then it's more about the systemic change that they want to see. So hence I personally have been involved into so many conversations wherein data is important, where project outcomes are important. The donors these days do understand the difference between the outcome and the impact and the journey from there. They are engaged in theory of change. So I think that's the best transition you can do, whosoever has asked this question. Trust me, you are on the right path. This is exactly what the sector needs at this moment. So I would just say go for it.
Maybe I can add a little point here. The best fundraisers are also who understand the ground very well.
Yes.
If you understand the ground, you are the best fundraiser because you can talk business right to the right people. And that's where I think I completely agree with you, Poornima.
Yeah.
Right. I will bring the last two questions. I have lots of questions, but since we are towards the end of our panel, I'm going to bring last two questions and then we go towards concluding remarks. But before that, my team will share a link for feedback. If anybody, please stay on, we'll finish on time. But if anybody has to leave, then just please leave the feedback and leave, but don't leave. Because we are about to wrap up. So this question I'm going to ask, and this is an interesting question, and I would hope to hear from as many of you, at different stages of a non-profit, what ways of fundraising usually work? Are there any rules of thumb? Is something better for startups, smaller non-profits, and something better for bigger non-profits? What are your thoughts on that?
I can just respond to that, Aarti. And these are different stages, and I would say these are different stages of expansion. Because someone also asked this question to me, which was, there was this common question, stages of expansion and scaling. And I find this very interlinked in so many senses because, your financial agility comes from diversification and discipline. And I would just say that when you are a small nonprofit to a mid-size and to a large organization, your processes, your systems, your compliance, your discipline will matter. And of course, at each stage, diversifying your funding sources across institutional donors, CSRs, individual givings, and government cost sharing, which we most of the time in the entire scheme of things do forget. And that's something that we have learned hard way at Room to Read, that government cost sharing also actually makes your programs more sustainable because the government then feels accountable. And that helps us reduce dependencies and manage the volatile nature of the funds that we generally expect either through the local funds or from the foreign funds. So I would just say that at any stages of the organization size you are, it's equally important to have data-driven forecasting, flexible funding systems, budgeting systems, because I think these days any donor you walk up to, whether it's an individual or corporate, your systems do matter, your compliances matter. That allows you to reallocate resources quickly. You can really do a risk mapping, what kind of risks are emerging. And for us at Room to Read, agility actually means for us is to be able to pivot. And I think this is where the small non-profits do struggle when they are not able to either pivot or they completely pivot and redesign the whole program based on what the donor is asking. So today I signed up for education for primary children, but tomorrow I have a fund or a grant coming in for a higher education. I just move around. So I think this is where when you create that niche, that portfolio for yourself, whether it's scaling or promising state partnering or tightening spending, I would just say without losing the sight of your mission, your funding kind of then flows in. So that's where largely I would think, whichever size you are in, these are the basic foundation, or I would just call them basic hygienes that one has to really look at.
Thank you, Poornima. I just wanted to bring in Dr. Anand here from the perspective of a for value organization that he was talking about. Is the experience different on the other side of things?
No, not at all. Actually, if you see, when you go for fundraising in, you do a Series A, Series B, Series C, you bring in an investment banker only at certain stages. Investment banker does not have a role when there is a small fundraise. You do it through individual networking. So it's the same story. You go to first to yourself. First you flog yourself to death. Then you go and raise it from friends and family who get cheated easily. Then you go raise it from angel investors. It's the same story. Only thing we sell a better story sometimes. And I got an investor who invested in us and then has been unhappy with me since then. But I raised equity, so he can't do anything about it.
Right. Thank you so much. And that's all that we have time for today. So thank you so much to our panelists for taking up these questions. And I'm sorry for if I was not able to include everybody, but I tried to get a mix of questions in. Anamika, over to you for conclusion. And yeah, thanks. And for thank you.
Thank you, Aarti. And I'll first of all thank everybody, the panelists as well as the audience also for asking such brilliant questions, because sometimes these discussions can become a little monotonous if you don't have these kind of mixed questions. And I really thank everybody. One, my favorite question, if I can ask, anybody can respond, is uh, if somebody is starting a non-profit today, or an organization for value today, what is one piece of advice if somebody would have given you at when you were starting would have been helpful? Any advice you would want to give to our audience, our young entrepreneurs or young founders? What would you say? It's kind of rapid fire. Let me go around the screen.
I would say earn trust before you chase the scale. So that's what I would just tell them.
Yeah. Ma'am, you were saying something.
I have a point. I can wait. Can I put my point across?
Yeah, sure. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
okay. So my point is, I would say today, focus on your product. Think of what you want to do. Focus on your product. The nature of funding or the type of organization you want to build can come later. First, you focus on your product and what you want to deliver. If you think that the product is suited to doing a for-profit, do a for-profit. If you think that it requires some kind of subsidy to come in, then think of a non-profit. Don't think of the ends or means this way. Think of the product.
Thank you, Anand. Bhagyashree, you were saying something.
Yeah, I would say number one would be patient. Don't just rush into numbers and getting more funding day by day, or closing those funding deals that are just waiting for you. And also invest time in building partnerships and relationships. Give some time for the existing funders as well. We just don't have to rush into getting new funders. Focus on the retention, because most of the funding comes on when we focus on retention of the existing funders. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say, in fact, if you're just starting out, learn to balance your investments. So you need to invest in fundraising, which is a constant struggle for us to explain to people why you need to put a pot aside for fundraising. So invest in that, because that will help you sell the product, like Dr. Anand said, whatever your cause is. But please invest in fundraisers and fundraising, whatever that may be for you, if you're just starting off and setting up a new organization.
Thank you, Nafeeza. Nikita, your thoughts?
So I'll first plus 100 what Bhagyashree said about focusing on retention than acquisition. It's always the more cost-effective way to go. And we kind of, again, under leverage and under strategize on the retention piece. But if I had to leave you with a mantra that we talk about in the fundraising program that we run, I would say, if you don't ask, the answer is no. The worst thing that happen is you'll get a no. But if you don't ask at all, then you've, made it 100%. So ask. put yourself out there.
Aarti, now you know why that mantra is favorite for me.
Yes, that is the one thing I was told after the ILSS fundraising is like ask.
Okay, so with this, we have ended. Actually, we have crossed 2 minutes now, and thank you so much for staying on. And I believe that this session was insightful. And thank you so much again for the panelists for your valuable time. And I have personally learned a lot from you all. And today being the first series of the Gyaan Daan, what you call is 5-day virtual sessions that we are having. So tomorrow is more about cross-sector collaboration, and I love all the audience who have joined us today also to join tomorrow. And if you, the panelists, also want to come in tomorrow, please most welcome. I know you all are at different places and busy with your time, but definitely please do join the conversation tomorrow as well. So thank you again. And as Aarti has said, we'll be sending the recording as well as the notes. And I'm sure that you have done the feedback form. So thank you so much, everyone. I personally feel really honored having you all on this panel. Thank you so much again.
I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to forward my thanks as well. It's because I have my team messaging me on WhatsApp, and they was like, and these are comms team people, so I had comms, and they were like, wow, there's so much for comms in it. And I thought it was a fundraising panel. So the cross-cutting connections that you all made, thank you so much. I'm actually saying thanks on their behalf, which is also brings me to my next request. Like Anamika has already said, please do join. Please ask your members of your organizations to join, but also please share the other panels from our Gyaan Daan on your networks, because the way everybody's joined us today, it will really help us for the other topics as well. So with that, thank you so much and have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Gyan Baat means Gyan Baat, that's what the motto is. So let's have that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Take care.